I want to get to something back to the original question that Jade asked, which is about multiculturalism and how we see the future of our country as a multicultural society. I think the key thing is we got to take the politics out of multiculturalism here somehow. Minister Kenney, your Minister of Immigration, has been segmenting the country into ethnic and very ethnic. It causes enormous resentment among Canadians. Newcomers to our country who become citizens, the thing they most want to be treated as is a Canadian. A Canadian is a Canadian. We're going to have a great future as a multicultural country if we work on that basis. Equality of rights, equality of responsibilities, competence in the two official languages. That's the ground that will create a stable multicultural society. But if we start micro-targeting communities and putting one community against another, the way Minister Kennedy's been doing, that's going to break up a multicultural society.
Well, I've made it my objective since we formed the new Party of Canada to make sure our party is present in all cultural communities of this country. That's what Minister Kenney and so many other of our members have been doing. It has been successful. More and more new Canadians are voting for our party. Obviously encourage them to do so. I think there are a lot of small C conservatives out there who should become big C's. And we respect the right of every party, Liberal, New Democrat, every party, to go out and try and get Canadians no matter what their different ethnic background. That's what we're doing. That's what we should all do.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. That is the end of that segment. We now go to question 5. This is the justice system. This segment will feature Michael Ignatieff having the first reply, Gilles Duceppe having the second reply. Let's look at the tape now from Gibsons, British Columbia. Roll tape.
Hi, my name is Len Gold. I'm a resident of Gibsons, BC, and my concern is safety for people in this country, being able to walk down the streets at night and being safe in their homes. And I'd like to know what the government plans on doing, dealing with the criminals and the light sentences being handed down to them by the courts.
Mr. Ignatieff, you're up first.
Well, Len, you're a lucky man if you live in Gibsons, BC. First of all, here's what we shouldn't do. We shouldn't import failed criminal justice policies from the United States. Mega prisons, mandatory minimums have failed in the United States. This is Canada. We have to have a criminal justice policy that's right for Canada. One of the things, if we're going to be tough on crime, we got to be tough on guns. The Harper government wants to gut the gun registry. This will reduce public safety. We need to invest in crime prevention. In the Lower Mainland, gang violence is a huge problem, and that may be what our friend from British Columbia is worried about. We have to give the police the tools to get tough on these drug-related gangs and lock them up where we need to. But the key thing here is we've got to learn from the failures of American criminal justice policy and get tough on guns, invest in crime prevention, and provide better victim services. That's being smart on crime, and that would be our approach.
Monsieur Duceppe.
Yes, I think that this government made a lot of demagoguery on the question of being tough on crime. They're saying they're tough on crime, but Mr. Harper is very soft on crime in his own office. I would say that when we look at the criminal rate, it is declining. The American model imported in Canada would be an important area. We just can't accept that. And it seems their philosophy is more guns and big prisons. And I think this is a very dangerous social cocktail. We have, on the other hand, to be responsible. And when I look at what the Bloc refused that twice, this is why Vincent Lacroix went out of prison. And we proposed those things, and I think that was responsible. But trying to eliminate the gun registry, I think, is an error that will affect all the Canadian and the Quebec societies. Policemen are saying so. Almost everybody in Quebec is saying so.
Mr. Ignatieff.
Well, one of the places, when I talk about let's make criminal justice policy in Canada, one of the places we can learn from is Quebec's policy on young offenders, what you call the jeunes contrevenants. I mean, that's the kind of emphasis on rehabilitation for young offenders that we need. We've got to get balance in our justice policy. When people commit criminal violence, crimes of violence against individuals, they've got to do time. There have got to be consequences for actions that threaten public safety. But we've got to give the police resources. We've got to maintain an integral gun registry. We've got to work on rehabilitation for young offenders. I mean, it's not an unimportant fact that so many people in our prisons haven't even finished high school. We got to think about what that means. Invest in education, make sure people get on the right path before they go off the wrong. This is the kind of balanced policy that we haven't seen from the Harper government.
Yes, but when you're talking about the young offenders, I remember that the first party to modify that law was the Liberal Party, and you supported it. The NDP was also supported that. I think that was an error denounced by the National Assembly in Quebec. And I think our system in Quebec is good. There's a good rate of rehabilitation in Quebec. But one thing I'm very worried about is that Mr. Harper said that he won't come back on abortion, neither on capital punishment. But we all know the tactic they use. They don't come with a proposal made by the government, but one of their members is coming with a private member bill, and then supported by most of the Tories, if not all of them. So it is one of the danger, if that party is in majority in the House of Commons, that they will use the same tactic. We don't want to talk about that, but one of the members will come, and then we'll see. They will try to make the abortion illegal, and it could be the same thing with the not illegal, but for the capital punishment to reinstate that.
Well,
Punishment to reinstate that.
Well, again, I think what Mr. Duceppe is referring to is also the politics of fear here. Crime is always a serious problem. When you've been hit or knocked over or had your purse stolen or the victim of personal assault, it matters to you and you want consequences. But you've also got to understand that crime in our country is not increasing. The politics of fear is designed to exploit and create fear. Mr. Harper specializes in the politics of fear on the crime agenda. And we need a balanced policy that's based on evidence, not ideology. This is the man who, tried to take apart the long-form census because he doesn't like facts that disagree with his ideology. We need criminal justice policy that's based on the facts as we see them. Tough on crime where we need tougher sentences. Rehabilitation. Crime prevention, much more investment in crime prevention, and more victim services, a balanced approach to this problem.
Okay, that's the end of the one-on-one. You seem to be a feature of the one-on-one there, so why don't I give you the first shot at it?
Let me respond to that and to Len's question. Len is right in saying, that while Canadians support and do want a very balanced system when it comes to criminal justice, that balance has been tilted. Rehabilitation is important, but it's also important that the punishment fit the crime. We've had important bills before Parliament for years that until very recently the other parties said they supported. They obviously don't. We have bills to have mandatory penalties for gangs that involve organized drug crime, for sexual predators. We want to repeal the situation where serious criminals can get pardons automatically. We want to be able to give store owners like David Chen the right to defend themselves without being charged. These are bills that are sitting before Parliament that Parliament will not pass. I'm hoping when a re-elected Conservative government gets back, what we'll do in the first 100 days is we'll package these bills together and get them passed, because this is what Canadians expect us to do. They expect us to take crime seriously and have punishments that fit the crime.
Jack Layton.
Well, I'm glad that you're supporting the legislation we proposed around David Chen and that sort of situation, small business owner in downtown Toronto. But I think the problem here is that you haven't fulfilled many of your commitments. You promised that there would be 2,500 more police officers for community policing, but not kept. And policing is very important if we're going to reduce crime levels that Len was talking about. Similarly, we do need some prosecution in certain key areas. We'd like to see carjacking and home invasions and the recruiting of a young person into a gang to be an offense. But most of all, we've got to focus on prevention in the first place. You've got to prevent the crimes from taking place if ultimately you're going to reduce crime levels the way we all want to. And that means strong support for programs for young people all over the country. Because if we give young people a positive choice when it comes to what they're doing after school, for example, so that when some troublemaker comes up and tries to tempt them into that life of crime with the bling and everything else that goes along with it, that they've instead got something very, very positive to do. And all over this country, there are people working so hard on these kind of programs. It's fantastic. And not all of them can manage to access these programs through tax credits and that kind of thing. We've got to be supporting particularly those vulnerable neighborhoods, and we have that's been a hashtag fail on this issue.
Mr. Ignatieff.
When Mr. Harper says, you know, if he gets another government in the first 100 days, we're going to have some